In a leafy suburb southwest of Nairobi lies a rich Kenyan heritage of perhaps Africa's largest collection of high-end vintage cars, a history that is as old as the country itself, dating way back to the colonial era. Welcome to Karen, and welcome to John ROE's home, a man of many daughters, at least according to how he calls these cars. If you met John ROE in the streets of the Kenyan capital, he would pass for just any ordinary man. But that is not the case when you get up close with him. ROE, his children, and his father all share a special trait: their love for cars, vintage cars in this case.
He was not in any way mechanically inclined, but I don't know, from maybe the age of 6, I can remember sort of liking the old cars. And my uncle had an old rugby with wooden spoked wheels, and I thought this was the best thing since sliced bread. And I've always loved the old cars, and I don't know why. It's just been in my blood, if you like. So when I bought my first one, as I say, the Chev in 1971, I was very moga, worried about what I could do with it, and how to drive it, and everything else. But my passion, has put me through.
His love for cars was ignited as early as 1971, when he first participated in that year's Concours DELEGANCE French for Show of Excellence, then participating with the 1929 Chevrolet. He has since then become a father figure of the prestigious annual Kenya Motor Show, participating with a whole lot of different cars over the years.
For me, it's not really about the Concours. I mean, the Concours is the grand finale, if you like, and it's a judgment of your work. But I'm not really looking particularly for my work to be judged. What interests me is, can I get this vehicle back to original or fairly original? Can I make it really good? And when this vehicle or any other vehicle goes to the Concours, to my mind, I've already won.
Today, ROE is a renowned vintage car collector in Kenya and in the region as well. He only boasts of such a rich collection, but is also keen on handing over this family tradition to the next generation. And who will better represent the generation than Veronica ROE, his real daughter? Besides the car, Veronica, 35 years, is the first female in Kenya to win the overall top Concours DELEGANCE prize for the best vintage car in 2018, in the close to 50 years of the competition's existence. Her father, now 75 years old, was recently crowned champion for the top prize in 2019 edition, taking over from where the daughter left.
Pretty amazing, to be honest. Not many people get the opportunity, female or male. So I think, I've been very lucky having a father who's an avid collector, and I've been lucky enough to be able to enter this beautiful car. So yeah, I was overwhelmed. It's amazing. Yeah, really happy.
In what went down and will probably be counted as one of the most dramatic motor shows down in recent times, John ROE tied with his daughter Veronica ROE on 275 points on this year's Concours event, but a old man chalked the coveted top prize by virtue of presenting before judges an older car. Veronica's victory in 2018 was thanks to her 1934 Rolls-Royce boat tail. She was presented with the best boot and tied 59-59 with her dad on engine points. She says that being the only woman so far to ever win the Concours DELEGANCE was a turning point in her life, and tying with her dad on this year's competition, or even having to compete with him at all, has been one of her best moments.
Strange feeling, actually. It's a bit surreal. You don't sort of take it in, and I think I was just very, very proud, to be honest, to be part of the ROE collection, really. I think it was quite amazing that a female, at least, has got a bit of a voice in the Concours now. But yeah, it was quite overwhelming with all the press and everything, but also a great feeling. My dad's been competing probably since the late 60s or 70s, I'm not really sure, but a long time. I actually started 3 years ago. I came back from UK.
Veronica, an investment banker by day, does not spare a weekend on the hobby she has heavily found interest in and hopes to inherit from her father. Her winning car, the 1934 Rolls-Royce Boattail, was a milk truck in Kisumu decades before it was worked by her father and reconstructed into a feast for the eyes that it is today.
We do the odd weddings here and there, that's for sure. But these vehicles are, vintage cars, and they have to be treated as old ladies and looked after. And we have various sorts of events. I mean, the biggest thing is that I'm a member, an honorary member of the Vintage and Classic Car Club of Kenya. Now, because, you know, I'm the biggest collector of vintage cars, when we have vintage cars events, if I was not to allow my vehicles out, or I was to resign from the club and keep my vehicles, there wouldn't be much of a vintage car club.
The car was part of her father's collection and has been with the family for 15 years. During this year's Concours d'Elegance, her car beat 77 others, including 2 Rolls-Royce, a 1928 Fiat, a 1959 Mercedes-Benz, a 1968 Jaguar, among others, to clinch the second position. To have an edge over her competitors, Veronica had to buy genuine parts from the Rolls-Royce in the United Kingdom and the United States, apply new paintwork, varnish as well as chrome upgrade.
And the year I came back, I sort of said to my dad, I would really like to put one of the cars in CONCOUR. And obviously this was my preference out of all the cars. I think at that stage he wasn't convinced that it was going to be a winner that year, because we only had about 2 months to prepare, but we got 3rd overall, which was amazing. And then obviously the following year we had a bit more time to prepare and managed to get 1st overall, which was just fantastic. I mean, it was only 1 point in it, but it, a win's still a win. So it's been an amazing journey. So last year was my 3rd year.
John Rowe's 1930 Ford model won the 2019 CBA Concours d'Elegance following a brilliant display at the Ngong Racecourse. The father of 3, who now owns a fleet of about 22 classic cars and is still collecting and restoring more, says that the cars have all been purchased right here in Kenya.
I mean, these are vintage cars, and, now they're very difficult to obtain. So if anybody wants to come in to challenge me, they'd have a hell of a job, because where are they going to get the vintage cars from? You may got the odd one coming up here and there, but now it's pretty rare. I mean, I think the question you really need to look at is one that goes a lot further back, and that is, what happened to all the cars that were in Kenya? Because if you look at a lot of the photographs of Nairobi in the old days, it's full of cars, these sort of cars. Where did they all go? That's the real thing.
It is an expensive hobby, he says, that takes a lot of time to assemble and maintain. Some of the car body parts have to be imported, and it takes time for them to be available to assemble for display at the CONCOUR event as a classic cars. The resources and time needed to acquire, restore and maintain these beauties is humongous, yet the joy and satisfaction that comes of it cannot be compared, observes John Rowe. He takes us through the meticulous tests that individuals have to undertake before they can drive any of his beautiful daughters.
So I try to support the Vintage Car Club in the best way I know how. And that is that if members are interested in using a car for a particular event that we may be running, then I say, okay, come round. Have you driven the car before? Yes. Okay, that's fine. You're a certified driver. If they haven't driven the car before, then normally my guy Joseph will take them out and he will give me a report. This guy's got no clue how to drive it, and I'll say sorry.
John Rowe is arguably the sole owner of the HOTCHKISS AM8 in Africa, a brand of luxury cars made between 1903 and 1995 by the French company HOTCHKISS. The car comes with a unique history, as we find out more from him.
But if you're talking about the HOTCHKISS, which I think we saw earlier on, people remember the HOTCHKISS name as being the HOTCHKISS machine gun. But when the war ended, they started making parts for other cars and other makes, until they thought, well, why don't we make a car for ourselves? So they went on to make the HOTCHKISS car. The one I've got is the AM80. We know that this is the only car in Africa, because I've been in touch with the HOTCHKISS club, and they have informed me that there are no other AM80s in Africa. So it's the only car in Africa, and on top of that, there's probably only about 80 of those cars worldwide. So that's quite unique.
Acquiring and restoring old and abandoned cars as well as buying classic cars has become a hobby for some Kenyans like John Rowe. Scores are today slaving away in their home garages to breathe new life into old cars in pursuit of their unique pleasure and desire to maintain the Kenyan history on vintage cars for the generations to come.
Should give it a go. Concours is such a fun day anyway, even if you don't win. The vibe there is amazing and the crowds are amazing. You know, when I went up onto the podium and all I need to do is woo, and you know, the crowds go crazy. So, I mean, just to be in that atmosphere is amazing. I don't think anyone should be put off, especially, you know, women. There are another few women that I know compete and really enjoy it, and it would be great to see more ladies enter, really. It's just time and money is needed, really.
George Manyange, Switch TV, Nairobi.
Yeah, because, well, the main reason I don't want them to go outside is because I don't want to leave them. I want them to be here. You know, and people say, oh, well, how much can I buy it, and so on. I say, do you have a daughter? He says, yes. I said, okay, how old is she? Oh, 13. How much can I buy her? No, of course you can't buy her. So, you know, they're like my daughters in a way. You can't buy them. Unless somebody made me an incredibly stupid price that I couldn't refuse, then maybe that might be a different thing.